The day my father died, I found a photo in his wallet that didn't belong there. It was tucked behind his driver's license and a faded picture of me from high school graduation, the one he always said made him cry. But this photo was different. It was a girl. Late 20s, maybe. Blonde. Smiling. Arms slung around his neck like she'd known him her whole life. I didn't recognize her. But what hit harder, what made my stomach twist, was where they were standing. In front of the lake house. Our lake house. The one he hadn't visited in years. The one I wasn't allowed to visit alone. The one he never mentioned anymore. And the date on the back, in his handwriting. August 9th. With Emma. Emma? My name is not Emma. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding the photo like it might melt. It was still warm from his pocket. Still fresh with the weight of the lie it carried. It had been 2 hours since the doctor told me he was gone. Heart attack. Sudden. Quiet. Nothing to do but say goodbye and start sorting through the life he left behind. And now, sitting in his bedroom, surrounded by the scent of aftershave and wood polish and the last book he hadn't finished, I realized I didn't know who my father really was. The next day, while going through his desk, I found an envelope labeled Private for Attorney Only. It had already been opened. Inside was a copy of a will I had never seen. And the first line said, "To my daughter, Emma, my sole beneficiary." I must have read that line 10 times. To my daughter, Emma, my sole beneficiary. My name wasn't anywhere in the document. Not as a backup. Not as a note. Not even a mention. I sat on the floor of his study, the opened envelope in my lap, heart pounding like I was mid-heist in my own home. Emma. The girl in the photo. The girl I wasn't. Who the hell was she? I tried to rationalize. Maybe it was old. Maybe he changed his mind. Maybe this was one of those legal drafts that never made it official. But the date in the corner said otherwise, June 14th. Just 3 months ago. It was newer than the will I'd filed with the lawyer after he passed. So, which one was valid? I didn't know what scared me more, losing my inheritance, or realizing my father had hidden an entire life from me. A life that apparently included another daughter. I stuffed the documents back in the envelope, trying to keep my hands from shaking. That's when I noticed it, something else wedged behind the folder inside the drawer. A small, black notebook with a leather cover. No label. No title. I opened it. And on the first page, in my father's writing. "If you found this, it means I'm dead, and you've met her." I stopped breathing for a second. There are things I should have said, but I didn't know how. So I left the truth here. Start at the lake house. The lake house. His lake house. The one he told me was being sold. The one he hadn't set foot in since Mom died. Or so I thought. I drove there that night. The drive was 2 hours through winding back roads and thick forest. I didn't call anyone. I didn't pack a bag. I just took the keys from the hook in the kitchen drawer, the ones he didn't know I knew about, and left. The house looked the same. Quiet. Empty. A little more overgrown than I remembered. But the lock still clicked open like muscle memory. Inside, the furniture was covered in sheets. The air was stale, but not dead. Not untouched. And on the kitchen counter sat a single mug. Dry inside. But used recently. I flipped the light switch. Nothing. Power was off. I grabbed my phone flashlight and made my way down the hall toward the bedroom. I half expected to find a mattress, some bags, a suitcase. Instead, I found a drawer that had been left slightly open. Inside, papers. Legal ones. Bank statements. And then, tucked inside a folder marked Emma S., I found a birth certificate. Father, Richard Monroe. Mother, unknown. Child, Emma Sloan. Sloan. My mother's maiden name. My blood ran cold. That girl wasn't just his daughter. She was my half-sister. And just as I started to flip to the next page, I heard the front door creak open behind me. I froze. Every instinct told me to run, to hide, to slam the drawer shut and crawl out the nearest window. But I didn't move. I couldn't. I stood there in the dark, one hand still on the folder labeled Emma S., trying to slow my breathing. The front door creaked again. Then silence. Footsteps. Soft. Hesitant. A shadow passed down the hallway, moving toward me. I stepped out of the bedroom just as she stepped in. She stopped. I stopped. We stared at each other in the dull beam of my phone's flashlight. She was real. The girl from the photo. Same wide-set eyes. Same chin. Same nose as him. Emma. We looked like echoes of each other. Not twins, but built from the same mold. My stomach turned. "Who are you?" she asked first. I should have said I'm his daughter, or I live here, or what the hell is going on. but nothing came out. Then she narrowed her eyes. You're Julia, aren't you? My throat tightened. How do you know my name? Because, she said slowly, he told me about you. Said you'd come eventually. Said if I saw you, I should tell you to leave. I blinked. Why? She stepped into the room like it still belonged to her. Because it's mine now. She walked right past me, opened the same drawer I had been rifling through, and pulled out another envelope. She didn't even flinch. I already have the new will, she said, almost casually. And the keys. I'm the legal beneficiary of everything. This house. The accounts. The land. Even the business. He signed it over after I found him. Found him? I asked, suddenly dizzy. What does that mean? She turned, held my gaze. It means I didn't know he was my father until last year. I found his name in an old file at the clinic where my mom used to work. She'd left notes, and she'd kept letters from him. Ones he told her to destroy. Wait, I said. Your mom worked at a clinic? Emma nodded. In the late 90s. Admin staff. It was small. Discreet. A place where men with money could make mistakes disappear. My chest tightened. What kind of mistake? Emma's eyes narrowed. The kind that comes with a heartbeat. I stared at her. She nodded slowly. He paid her off. Told her to disappear. But she didn't. She kept me. Quietly. Alone. And when she got sick last year, she gave me everything. She crossed her arms. I wasn't looking for money. I just wanted answers. And when I met him, I thought maybe he'd finally give me a reason why I wasn't good enough for him to stay. I swallowed hard. What did he say? She blinked. He said he never stopped loving my mother. That your mom was the mistake. That you were the life he settled for. It was a punch straight to the chest. I wanted to call her a liar. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Because deep down, I'd always known my parents' marriage wasn't love. It was a contract they never got around to tearing up. And that's when she said it. There's another will. I looked up. She pulled a small red envelope from her bag and dropped it on the table. One he wrote by hand. Unwitnessed. Hidden in this house. Dated 2 weeks before he died. She leaned in, voice low and sharp. And in that version, you get everything. The room tilted. I stared at the red envelope on the table like it might burst into flames. Emma watched me, arms crossed, expression unreadable. That's not possible, I said, though my voice cracked halfway through. Emma shrugged. Believe me, I was just as surprised. He left it behind the bookshelf, hidden inside an old copy of the Odyssey. Fitting, right? Man runs from himself, dies trying to find his way home. She pushed the envelope closer to me. Go ahead. Open it. My fingers hovered over the flap. I didn't want to touch it. Didn't want it to be real. Because if what she said was true, then everything we'd both been told, every lie, every omission, was about to detonate. I opened it. The handwriting was unmistakably his. Slanted, neat, slightly rushed like he'd written it in one sitting. The ink bled in places, smudged at the bottom where his hand had dragged across the paper. And the opening line stopped my breath. If either Julia or Emma finds this, know that I couldn't choose. I loved you both in ways I couldn't admit. I read the rest silently. He wrote about his guilt. About how he met Emma's mother before he married mine. How he thought he could walk away from that part of his life, but never did. How he kept Emma's photo in his wallet for years before I ever knew. And then, I have left legal wills for both. But neither is complete. Because the truth is, I wanted you to find each other. I wanted you to realize that inheritance isn't money, it's damage. If you can forgive me, split it. If you can't, bury me twice. At the bottom, he'd signed both our names. I set the letter down, hands shaking. Emma didn't say anything. Finally, I looked at her. Why didn't you destroy this? She hesitated. Because I didn't want to win like her. Like Vivian. Vivian. I echoed. Our grandmother? She nodded. I met her. Once. Just before she died. That hit me like ice water. You what? She called me, Emma said, pulling a small phone from her pocket. Said she'd been watching. That she knew who I was before he ever did. And that there were things, secrets my father never told anyone. About the money. About the land. About our family. She held up the phone. I recorded the conversation. And pressed play. Vivian's voice crackled through the speaker. Raspy. Controlled. Cold. Your father is weak. That's what I tried to breed out of this line. But he kept making the same mistake. Falling for the ones who wouldn't obey. Like your mother. Like Julia's. He thinks this is about forgiveness. It isn't. It's about survival. I left behind more than money. I left proof. About what he did. About what Julia's mother found out before her accident. My jaw locked. What accident? I asked. My mother died of a stroke. Emma looked at me, deadly calm. Vivian said it was staged. I staggered back. And then she dropped the last bomb. She also said there's a safe, hidden in the house, behind the wall in the old piano room. What's in it? She didn't say. Emma paused. But she said one more thing, only one of us is supposed to find it. A silence fell between us. Then we both moved fast, racing down the hall, into the dark, toward a room neither of us had entered in years. Only one of us would reach the safe first, and only one of us would be ready for what was inside. We sprinted down the hallway like it was a warpath. I didn't speak. Neither did she. Emma was faster, I'll give her that. But I knew the house better. I cut through the dining room while she looped around the hall, and I made it to the piano room first. The room hadn't changed. Same baby grand. Same cracked bench. Same wall of fading portraits. But I never remembered a safe. I ran my fingers along the back wall, tapping the plaster for hollows, feeling for anything unnatural. That's when Emma shoved through the door, breathless. Move, she snapped. Not a chance, I said. She dropped to her knees and started pressing on the floorboards near the far corner. We were working in silence, backs to each other, rage and panic and bloodline trauma vibrating through the room like a second heartbeat. And then a click. I froze. So did she. I had pressed a panel. Slightly raised. Unnoticeable unless you knew what you were feeling for. The wallpaper shifted. A square outline became visible, hidden in plain sight. Emma stood. You going to open it? She asked. I hesitated. She stepped closer. You think this ends with inheritance? This ends with knowing what he really was. I slid my fingers behind the panel and pulled. It revealed a wall safe, small, steel, old. No keypad. Just a dial. Below it, in chalk, barely visible, were 4 numbers. 11 to 19, 62, 08. His birthday. My birthday. Mom's death. The year he married mine. My hand trembled as I turned the dial. Right. Left. Right. Click. It swung open. Inside, a black box. Locked. And a folder labeled Confession. I grabbed the folder first. Emma reached for the box. Wait, I said. But it was too late. She opened it. Inside, nestled in black velvet, were 3 things. A blood-stained handkerchief. A diamond ring cracked down the center. A USB drive. She lifted the drive and said, this wasn't meant for either of us. Then she plugged it into her laptop, right there on the piano bench. The screen lit up. A single file. Video.mp4. We opened it. The footage was grainy, black and white, timestamped March 2001. The frame showed the inside of this very house. The foyer. And in the corner, barely visible, a woman. My mother. She was crying. Arguing with someone off-screen. Pacing. A man stepped into frame. It wasn't my father. It was my uncle. Vivian's other son. Daniel. And then, like a blade to the gut, we both heard him say, you were never supposed to find out. And if you tell him, I'll bury you right here in this house. My mother backed away, terrified. And then the screen glitched. Cut to black. Emma turned to me, her voice shaking. Your father didn't kill your mother. I looked at her, mouth dry. Then who did? She whispered. Our uncle. The video ended in silence. No dramatic music. No clear resolution. Just a static hum and the sickening realization that everything I believed about my family, about myself, had been carefully, deliberately engineered. Uncle Daniel. The quiet one. The executor of Vivian's trust. The man who slipped in and out of family events like smoke. Always polite. Always forgettable. And now, possibly, a murderer. Emma sat frozen beside me, her laptop still glowing. He threatened her. In this house. And then she died 3 weeks later in a so-called accident. That's not coincidence. I swallowed hard. My hands were still on the folder from the safe. The one labeled Confession. I think there's more, I said, and opened it. Inside were handwritten pages, yellowed and curling at the edges. Vivian's writing. I recognized it instantly. She had written it like a letter. Not to us. To herself. I raised 2 sons. One was weak. The other was worse. Daniel was always the clever one. Always watching. I should have never trusted him with the books, with the cleanup, with the discipline. But he understood what I was trying to build. A family that would survive scandal. Survive time. A bloodline free of scandal, even if that meant rewriting it. Further down. When Julia's mother found the files, she told me she was going to the police. I didn't believe her. Until she came back from the notary with a sealed envelope. She said she'd mail it if anything happened to her. Daniel said he'd take care of it. I thought he meant the envelope. But the next morning, she was gone. I read the final line out loud, barely able to form the words. I didn't know what he meant until it was too late. Emma stood. We need to find that envelope. It might still be out there. I nodded, heart pounding. If she gave it to someone, there has to be a record. A name. A witness. Something. Emma was already typing on her phone. We tracked down the notary. Find out if anything was filed, sealed, anything traceable. I was about to respond when I heard it. A click, followed by slow, heavy footsteps upstairs. We both turned toward the sound. This house was supposed to be empty. I grabbed the USB, slammed the laptop shut, shoved the confession into my bag. The footsteps reached the staircase, descending. Emma whispered, "Do you think it's Daniel?" I whispered back, "I think someone else knew we'd come looking." We backed toward the hallway, trying to move quietly. But the footsteps were getting louder. Closer. Then a voice rang out from the stairs, calm, casual, chillingly familiar. "You girls always were curious." Emma stopped breathing. I did too. Because that voice? It wasn't Daniel. It was my father. My father stepped into view at the bottom of the stairs. Same face. Same posture. But something was off. His eyes, maybe. The way they scanned the room, not surprised, not even annoyed. Just prepared. "Dad?" I said, my voice cracking. "You said you didn't know." He didn't respond right away. Just took another step forward. His shoes echoed on the hardwood, loud in the silence. He looked from me to Emma, then down at the scorched edge of the folder peeking from my bag. "You opened the safe," he said. "Tell us the truth," Emma snapped. "Did you know what Daniel did to her?" He raised an eyebrow, almost amused. "What he did?" Then he smiled. "A slow, bitter thing. He didn't kill your mother, Julia." I did. I felt the floor drop out from under me. "No," I whispered. "That's not. There was video." He threatened her. "I know," he interrupted. "I saw it too. You think you're the first to find that drive?" He pointed to the box. "It was bait. Vivian made it for you. For whoever got curious. She wanted you to look just far enough." I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Emma's voice broke through the fog. "You're lying." But he kept talking. "She was going to ruin everything. Your mother. She found out about Vivian's offshore accounts. The adoption fraud. The seed program. She was going to destroy it all, and you with it. You think she was noble, Julia? She wasn't. She was going to turn you in too." "Turn me in for what?" I shouted. He stared at me. "She thought you were stolen." I took a step back, dizzy. Was I? He looked down. "I don't know." Emma grabbed my arm, grounding me. "She's not the only one he buried," she said. "We have the files. The letter. Vivian's confession." He looked at her, and something shifted. "That's why you're both here," he said slowly. "You think you're going to bring it all down." "We're not thinking," Emma said. "We're doing." A silence stretched. Too long. My father's expression changed again. Hardened. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small black object. Not a gun. A remote. "I'm not going to prison for them," he said. "Not for her. Not for Daniel. Not for a family I never wanted to be part of." My voice was a whisper. "What did you do?" "There's a charge under the foundation," he said. "It was Vivian's failsafe. She said if the truth ever crawled too close to the surface, let the house sink with it." He raised the remote, pressed his thumb against the button, and smiled. "Goodbye, girls." I lunged. I didn't have time to think, only to move. I tackled him just as his thumb pressed down. The remote slipped from his hand and clattered across the floor. Emma snatched it before it could be triggered. He shoved me off, stumbling back. "You don't know what you're doing." "No," I said, breathless. "But I know what you've done." He laughed. Not like a villain in a movie, like a tired man at the end of a very long lie. "It was supposed to die with her. With all of them." Emma's voice cut through the tension. "The failsafe, where is it?" He didn't answer. She stepped closer, remote still in hand. "You hit that button, and the truth dies. But if we destroy the trigger, you die with it." He looked between us, his daughters, one hidden, one denied. "You think you're stronger than her?" he said. "Vivian planned this from the day you were born. You were both pieces on a board. She picked you for what she could use. I just carried out the moves." "I'm not a piece," I said. "I'm the one flipping the board." And then something happened that I didn't expect. He deflated, shoulders slumping, hands shaking just slightly. She told me to choose, he whispered. Vivian said one of you could inherit, the other had to vanish. Balance. Legacy. That's what she called it. Emma stared at him. And you chose me. His silence was the answer. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not betrayal, resignation. This man had never been mine. Not truly. I was his shadow child. The backup. The spare. The one you bury if the real plan goes wrong. Emma didn't hesitate. Where's the failsafe? He nodded toward the fireplace. Behind the hearth. Under the floorboards. She moved fast, pried up the panel, and found it. A crude box of bundled wires, caked in dust. She yanked the battery. It sparked. Died. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. We take this to the police, Emma said. Everything. The folder. The video. Vivian's letters. We end it legally. I nodded. But Dad, he didn't run. He sat on the floor, hands in his lap, staring into the cold fireplace like it might flicker to life and swallow him whole. He said one last thing before we left. You won't find peace. Not with this family. All you'll find is the next lie. We didn't sleep. We didn't speak much. The next morning, we turned it all in. The files. The video. The confession. We gave it to a lawyer, someone Emma trusted, someone out of state. He didn't ask questions. Just read. And by the time we left his office, the dominoes had started to fall. Arrests. Freezing of accounts. Subpoenas. The Monroe legacy was crumbling in real time. But the most unexpected part? A letter arrived at my apartment 2 days later. No return address. Inside was a key and a deed to a property in Vermont. No note. Just a slip of paper that said, "She left you something after all." The drive took 6 hours. I didn't tell Emma I was going. Part of me still didn't believe the key was real, another part of Vivian's mind games, some symbolic gesture meant to manipulate me from beyond the grave. But when I pulled into the gravel drive, I knew. This was mine. The house was tucked deep into the woods. Small. Old. Cedar shingles. No security gate. No cameras. Just silence and pine trees that bent toward the house like they were listening. The key fit. Inside, it smelled like dust, lemon polish, and something faintly familiar, like my grandmother's perfume. Everything was preserved. Books on the shelf. Blankets folded neatly on the armchair. A photo on the mantle of a woman I didn't recognize. Dark hair. Gentle eyes. And then I found the envelope taped to the back of the front door. My name on the front. Inside. I bought this place for the daughter I'd never claim. A backup life. A blank slate. When your mother got too close, I knew I'd have to burn the truth or hand it over. I chose the latter. I didn't think you'd survive this. But you did. Which means you're stronger than any of us. This house is yours. If you want to disappear, here's your chance. If you don't, then you'll need what's in the attic. I stared at the note for a long time. Then I climbed the stairs. The attic door creaked open like it hadn't moved in years. Inside, tucked under a tarp, was a wooden chest, and inside that, ledgers, passports, photos, and a tape recorder. I pressed play. Vivian's voice crackled to life. If you're listening to this, then your father is either in prison or dead. And Emma, well, let's just say I never trusted her as much as I trusted you. You were the one I couldn't predict. The variable. The surprise. The others? They were roles I cast. Characters I built. You were the wild card. But on the kitchen table sat a new item that hadn't been there before. A manila envelope. No writing. No return name. No note. Inside, a photo of Emma with Vivian. Smiling. Younger. A transcript of a psychiatric evaluation. Dated 5 years ago. Emma Sloan, age 24. And a medical intake form. Checked, elective memory therapy. At the bottom, in handwriting I now recognized instantly. She asked to forget. I helped her remember. I knew she'd come looking eventually. My head spun. Emma knew more than she'd ever admitted. Maybe more than I did. She hadn't just found our father. She'd been looking for me. But why? I flipped over the last page. A postscript, scribbled in the margins. Check the name on the original trust, Julia. The first name I ever attached to the empire. It wasn't Richard. It wasn't Daniel. It wasn't even mine. It was hers. I barely slept. Drove to the bank the next morning with the trust paperwork in hand. Asked to see the original deed, the foundation ledger. The woman behind the desk looked at me strangely. You're listed as co-trustee now. You can request access. She handed me a folder with the original founding paperwork, dated 1995. The trust name? Sloan Family Legacy Foundation. Emma's last name. My mother's maiden name. And beneath it, the original founder, Elizabeth Sloan. My grandmother's sister. Vivian hadn't started the empire. She stole it. I flipped the final page. A sealed envelope, marked only if challenged. Inside, a short handwritten statement. Elizabeth was weak. She would have given it away. I did what had to be done. I created the family she couldn't. Her granddaughter will understand one day. She already does. Emma didn't stumble into this story. She was born into it. And so was I. But only one of us was written into the beginning. The other was written in as the end. My phone buzzed again. Another message. I've made my choice. Now it's your turn. E. Attached was a flight confirmation. One ticket. Her destination. My name on the reservation. I stared at the boarding pass for a long time. One way. No return. Departure in 12 hours. The destination? Marseille, France. A city Vivian once referred to as where all the dirt gets washed offshore. I thought it was just another one of her cryptic sayings. Apparently not. I didn't pack much, just the folder of trust documents, the USB drive, the ledgers, and Vivian's confession. Everything else, the property, the letters, even the house, I left behind. I didn't know if I'd be coming back. I wasn't sure if I wanted to. At the airport, I scanned the crowd 100 times, convinced Emma would show. She didn't. But when I boarded the plane, I found a note tucked into my seat pocket. There were always two daughters. One was chosen to preserve, one to destroy. Vivian never understood we could choose to become something else entirely. This isn't a war anymore. It's a reckoning. Marseille wasn't what I expected. Not glamorous, not mysterious, but alive, messy, honest. I followed the instructions that came in a second message upon landing. A bookstore in the second arrondissement. Ask for the private archive. I expected a secret room, a confrontation, maybe even a trap. Instead, I found a vault, rented under Vivian's name since 1996. Paid in cash. Its contents? A lockbox of foreign IDs, a hard drive labeled Sloan backups, and a notebook. The first page read, "If you're reading this, one of us survived." I took it all, returned to the small apartment rented for me in Emma's name. She still hadn't appeared. That night, I received one final message. Vivian built a bloodline. We have to bury it. Use the drive. Publish the files. Burn it down. Then disappear. Or, take the keys. Pick up where she left off. The world won't know the difference. I made my choice. Now make yours. Attached was a photo of Emma. Smiling. Burning everything. Ledgers. Trust files. Birth certificates. ID cards. All of it. I looked at the hard drive in my hands. Everything Vivian had built, every lie, every identity, every crime, was now mine to expose. Or inherit. I thought about my mother. About the truth she tried to protect. About the life I had before this all began. And then, I walked to the shore, dug a hole, and buried the hard drive beneath the cold sand. When I returned to the apartment, I found one final envelope taped to the door. Inside, a plane ticket. Anywhere I wanted to go. A debit card. Untraceable. And a handwritten note, in Emma's unmistakable script. We were never enemies. We were the ending they feared most. Live free. Not inherited. I smiled. For the first time in a very, very long time.